Hello everyone. So in this video, we'll be talking about the various data types and keywords used in C programming language. So in this chapter, we'll be dealing with the four main types of data used in C programming, which are the char data type, the ints, floats, and double. So by the end of this video, you get to know how to use the various types of data in the C project that you are going to work with. Okay, so the C language reserves certain words that have special meanings to the language. So there are words you can't just use them in a C project since the C compiler has reserved them for some special functions. So those reserved words are sometimes called the C keywords. Alright, so you should not use the C keywords for your own variable, constant, or function names in your programs. So typical example is in case you are you have a project and you print something, maybe print hello world here. Then you want to go to the next page, or you want to clear the screen for another output to come. You have to use the system and then you clear. Right, so meaning this sys cannot just be used to declare variables because it has its own function. I hope that's clear. So keywords like go to, auto, register, a lot, they all have their special function in the C programming language. So we don't just use them in constant defining some variables and rest. I hope that's clear. Okay, so if that's clear, what we talk next about is the char data type. So we'll be taking them one by one. The character, the integer, floats, and then the double, and we get to know their size using the operator size of. Okay, so meaning to get to know the various sizes of the data type, you have to use the operator called size of. Size of. Take note. Size of. Okay, so the operator is called size of. Alright, so the character data type, as the name denotes, is for characters and it's specialized for only one character. Alright, so before you can print out a string of characters, you have to give that character variable a limit. So I mean, when you're declaring a variable which is a character, char maybe char calls, yes, or you assign it to a variable a. This character will print out only one and only one character. I hope that's clear. So when you want to print out a string, you give it a limit. So calls maybe 20 characters. So this one we've programmed it to take 20 inputs. I hope that's clear. Alright. And then the computer can only store numeric code. A computer can only store a numeric code, meaning every character that you input to the system should be converted to a numeric code which can further be understood by the computer. I hope that's clear. So then the A, B, C, and to the Z that you input to the computer will be translated to a code called the ASCII code. So in our computing, we'll be hearing of ASCII codes. ASCII spelled ASCII, which means American Standard Code for Information Interchange. American Standard Code for Information Interchange. This is the standard code for translating the character variable to the binary code or the system code, which is called the machine code. I hope it's clear. All right. So if you take A in ASCII code, I think is 67. 65. So 65 will further be translated to the binary code, which is much simpler for the computer system to manipulate. Okay. So the original ASCII character set has only 128 characters because it uses the lower 7 bits. So when you're taking from 0 to 9, that's 8 bits, and 8 bits it's 1 byte. So meaning that a character has a capacity of 1 byte, which is 1. That's clear. So let's use the size of operator to get the bit capacity of character. All right. So let me clear this. So print function is an integer variable, so %d size of character. Okay, so printf brackets in quotation mark %d comma size of the character, and you build and run. So when you execute, it will give you the bit capacity or the size of the character you are looking for. Alright, so it's taking some time to execute. Okay, so from the compiler, the size of the cal data type is 1. I hope that's clear. So let's take another example. In case you've assigned a character, maybe an external variable. So you have a global variable, character equals a, and you want to get a size of this character, which is a. So you come here, size of course, which is a character, which is 1 because it's a single character. But then when you have a string, let's try for a string. So okay, so alright, so I think that's clear. Let's continue with the int. So with the same idea, with to get the size of a character, we use that same approach to get the size of int, float, and double. Right, so int is just denoting an integer. So the size of an integer, so you come here, the size of int, and then you print it out. It will give you a nice output which says 4. So int has a bit capacity of 4. And then let's see for float. Float has a bit capacity or a size of 4. And lastly, double. So in simple term, double is just 2 times a float, so meaning the size will be 8. So double is 8. Okay, so what the or the data type is about is that the integer, when you want to declare an integer variable, use the int, and you have to know how to manipulate this bit capacity so as not to get a higher execution time. So the lower the execution time, the better the project you're doing. So as a good programmer, you have to know how to work with these capacities, the size, to avoid creating a large file or a large project. I hope that's clear. Or else you end up using pointers to remove some lists or some inputs from an array, which will waste time. So as a good programmer, you have to get a very solid knowledge as to how these data types are manipulated. All right, so to highlight more on these data types, as I said, the character follows the 128 character space in ASCII code standard. I hope that's clear. And um, when you take the ints, as I said, it has a bit capacity of 4, and we use the size of to print these bit capacities. So if you want to get the range of an integer which falls in Unix workstation. So in Unix workstation, the integer is 32 bits long. That's in, so it depends on the compiler you're using. Some compilers take 16 bits, some compilers take 32 bits. And the range of the 16 bits integer is the 32,767. All right, so this is not a big deal. To get all these ranges, you have to use um, the formula 2 to the power n all minus 1. Okay, so if you are using a 32-bit compiler, it will be 2 to the power 32 all minus 1 and get a range with which the integer will fall. How that's clear? All right, so float is basically a decimal number. So in case you're taking an aggregate which will be in a decimal form, you are taking CWA, you are taking GPA, body mass, height, and all these forms, you have to use the float or the double. And the double is basically the twice of a float. So if float has a bit capacity of a size of 4, a double will also have words 2 times of that, which is 8. I hope it's clear. All right, so the last thing we will do is how to declare all these data types in a variable form to be used in your project. Okay, so I have a simple project for us to display. Okay, so now we want to take some input from a user, which will comprise of an integer, which will have a character in it, and it will have a float and a double. Okay, so um int grade, we have character name, we have float CWA, have double GPA. So you declare them. All right, so this is what you want to do. You want to get the grade of the user and then the name. So from the grade, we will print the CWA from this grade and then assign it to the name of the user. So at the same time, we printed the name and the CWA. I hope that's clear. So using the printf and the scanf, you print, enter your grade. Okay. Enter a grade, scan this statement. So the user will enter grade, and since the grade is an integer, you use the %d, and we are taking the grade, so you have to assign an address. So what's happening here is that the %d is telling the system that the user is inputting a certain integer variable, and what the computer should do is to take in the address of this integer variable. That's why we are using the ampersand. So the ampersand sign just means the address of. So it's used to get the address of a variable. Okay, so this is what you do. So you enter the grade. All right, so print function. Okay, so said the CWA, which is equal to, let's say, the grade divided by 18, which is the total number of courses or the credit hours you're doing. Therefore, you print out your CWA. CWA is, it's a float, so %f CWA. Okay, so let's print out what you've done so far and see whether there's an error or we have to manipulate something. Okay, so it says enter a grade. Enter my grade, maybe 80. CWA is 4.0000, meaning it's a float. I hope that's clear. And the 4 was obtained from dividing the 80 by 18. I hope that's clear. All right. Thank you very much